Hi, my name is David, and I try to play guitar. I'm not very good, as you can tell. One day, I saw a video of blues great Joe Bonamassa getting very technical about his guitar amplifiers. For a guitar player, that guy really knows his stuff about amps. He inspired me to learn more. But to really understand guitar amps, you need to take them apart and put them back together. I watched hundreds of videos. I read all kinds of books. From Craigslist and eBay, I bought a used soldering iron, some old voltmeters, an ancient oscilloscope, and other test gear. Eventually, I built an entire electronics lab. Now, I guess I'm sort of an amp mechanic. I fix other electronics too, and this is my journey. I figured I'd share so others can learn too. I hope you like it, and just as a disclaimer, be sure to consult an expert before working with electricity.
Hey, Dave the Amp Mechanic coming to you from my car in northern Massachusetts. It's about 5:45 a.m. on a beautiful Saturday morning. This might be the best Saturday we've had in New England all year. And what I'm doing right now is I'm heading up to the New England Amateur Radio Club Festival. This is the NEARFest, that's what they call it. It's in Deerfield, New Hampshire, and this is one of my guitar safaris. Now, on this particular day, I don't believe I'll be picking up any guitars or amplifiers, at least not guitar amplifiers. However, the New England Amateur Radio Club is a great place to find some gear that will be great for the amp lab. So, for example, maybe a bunch of tubes that I could use, some spare new old stock tubes, maybe some old tube radios or something like that I want to mess around with. But a lot of the times what you find at these swap fests are some, I'm just waving to a nice lady who I was helping out with the money machine here. Maybe I'll find something like a great old oscilloscope or something like that, signal generator, gear that will be helpful in the lab. And also, rumor has it that anything you find there is for like $10-15. So I'm on my way up there. It's about a 45-minute drive from where I am right now. I'm at Dunkin' Donuts. I'm going to refill my coffee cup, and then I'm going to head on up there with a bunch of cash in my pocket. I'm going to try to get some singles from my coffee purchase at Dunkin' Donuts, because I understand it's really good to have singles when you're at the swap fest like this, because you have to haggle with everybody on their prices and you end up paying $3 for something. So let's head up to New Hampshire and see what we can find. Well, that was it. That was my first Ham Fest, and I gotta say that I left there with lots of crazy impressions. Obviously, it's a great place to go if you're looking for some vintage gear, even some new stuff for your lab, or even some older gear to work on, to fix up. In some cases, even some working gear. It's a ham fest, so you're going to find a lot of ham radios and all of the other devices that you need to get a ham setup working. So power supplies and microphones and transceivers, receivers, transmitters, antennas, speakers, all these parts of a ham setup are separate. The power supply, linear power supply, these things go online on eBay for big money. Like if you find, let's say, linear power supply, Heathkit linear power supply on eBay, they go for upwards of $400, $500, sometimes even more dollars. It's amazing that this stuff sells for so much money online, given the relative popularity of ham radio. And in fact, that in some ways to me is one of the takeaways from a ham fest like this. When you walk around, what you really see are mostly people who are older than me
and I'm a pretty old person. I'm in my 50s, right? And they're all there. They're these big enthusiasts. They're really into ham and all that. But what you don't see is like a lot of young people into it at all. And so the question that puts in my mind is, well, how in the world is it that all of this used ham gear can go for so much money when the number of people in the market for that gear seems to be not only shrinking, but, you know, I hate to say it, dying off. I mean, it's a breed, right? You think about the old days when everybody was using ham radio. Now we're talking about a literally dying breed, sadly, because these people are really nice people. I mean, a lot of these people are really wonderful, neat to meet, and just to talk about gear with.
Okay, my son, I'm trying to get my oldest son, interested in ham radio. And I talked to him, he says he has a cell phone, and he can talk all over the world with a cell phone. He doesn't need a radio, so he's not interested in ham radios.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how, like, around here, it's all, everybody I see is probably in their 50s or later.
I'm 80 years old. And I got
You're 80 years old?
Yeah, I'm 80. My first license I got in 1956.
Your first ham license?
Yeah, it was W1UJZ.
You don't look 80 years old, sir.
No, I am. I work at Faye's Boatyard.
I hope I'm up by Winnipesaukee.
Yeah?
Yeah, I hope I'm in your shape when I'm 80 years old.
Well, I just come out of the hospital.
We sure don't look. You look great for 80.
Well, I'm trying to stay young. I ride a bike still, and I work, and I work 20, 40 hours a week. I work at the boatyard. I'm an electrician.
The problem here is like, all these guys here selling and stuff. I mean, they're all, it's going to be a lost art. That's,
ham radios is not what it used to be.
No, I mean, I may have seen 4 people under my age, and I'm 57, so, I mean, it's crazy. Like all this, what's going to happen to all this stuff?
I don't know.
This
is old stuff here, stuff like that.
I know, but I mean, like all the stuff that's here, there's going to be no market for it in 10 years.
I got 20,000 tied up in slip radios. That's about a receiver for 1,300 transceiver.
Incredible.
ICOM 7300, HRO. But stuff's selling. It's people are buying radios for $10,000. People got the money.
Yeah, but the people who are buying it,
they're
it's
older
like
people. Like me.
None of the kids.
Oh no, the kids can't afford it.
Yeah.
Either, My son makes $10 an hour. He can't afford it.
Right.
Well, I spent $4,000. I just sold my aircraft stuff for $4,800. What I had, some of it that I'd built. I love to build kits.
Yeah. I see a lot of Heathkit stuff here.
I've been an electrician for almost 40 years. And I got a master's. And I work at the yard. I'm retired, and I work 20 hours a week at the yard, Faye's Boatyard in Gilbert.
All right, well, thank you very much. It was very informative. Good luck with the sale today.
Thank you.
Okay, you are?
I am Jim Evans, N1HTS.
And see, now, I come here and everybody's walking around with like hats and their license plates and all that have things like N1HTS. What does that mean?
It's a U.S. amateur radio call sign.
Uh-huh. So you're a ham, right?
I am ham.
And a lot of these guys are ham.
Most here are hams.
Okay. And what is here? I mean, I see your shirt says NEARFest and your staff. So what is NEARFest?
NEARFest is a New England amateur radio festival.
Okay.
And if you pan around, you will see all kinds of amateur radio gear and other stuff.
Right. So I mean,
radios, components, antennas.
It's like the garage sale of ham radio.
Correct.
People. But there's all kinds of other stuff here too, right? I mean, like just
oscilloscopes,
parts.
Yeah. Some bring their wives and they get their little knitting sale.
Now, I was asking an 80-year-old gentleman earlier. Let me ask you this question: when I come here, I see a lot of guys that are older than me. And mostly men. And I wonder, like 20 years from now, like I don't see a lot of kids taking up an interest in this. And the guy I talked to said, he was talking about how the kids have iPhones and all that, and they're just not interested. What is this going to be a lost art? Do you think?
I don't believe so. We actually brought in a whole bunch of students yesterday, and they had classes.
How old were they?
I'm guessing middle school and above.
Oh, okay, good. That's good.
That's good to hear. Bus loads. So they had programs, showing them satellite, how to communicate with satellites, robotics, that kind of thing.
I mean, I have in the back of my mind, I worry a little bit about a
lot of hobbies are kind of like that.
Yeah.
Where kids today can pick up a phone and call anyone pretty much around the world, but that's all going through the internet.
Yeah.
What we do is over the airwaves.
Yeah.
So we look for the challenge.
Yes.
I mean, there's no challenge picking up a cell phone and calling someone.
No, there isn't.
So, but
I worry that there's not enough kids looking for that challenge, and I look at all these wonderful people here. They're all bonded together by this common interest in ham radio and radio communications, and there's a lot of people here into that. I just don't see enough young people walking around.
We're trying to get the younger people in.
Yeah.
Again, now we have a lot of digital communications where you can just sit there and type on the keyboard and communicate with someone else around the world on low power. Because of all the digital processing that goes on in the computers, that's very easy to do right now. So you don't need big amplifiers or what have you. You just need the connection to your computer and radio.
This goes on for how many days?
It's a day and a half, really. So we do full day Friday and
half day on Saturday.
Half day on Saturday because the grand prize drawing is at 2:00.
What's the grand prize for?
There's probably a rate.
I mean like what? Is it a door prize kind of thing?
Door prize.
Oh,
right.
door prize.
You got to buy a ticket. And you put the stub in the drum, and there's a bunch of prizes they give out. So.
Yeah. How come the ham radio setups? I was walking around, dozens, thousands, and it's just like every table's got a whole mess of ham radios on it. Some of them broken up into various components like receivers, transmitters, power supplies, etc., amplifier. How come they still command so much money? I mean, they're pretty expensive, even though they're pretty old. A lot
of the tube receivers and transmitters still have pretty good value on them.
Yeah.
Because again,
still a high demand for that stuff.
There's still a high demand, believe it or not.
And is anybody making that stuff anymore? Or is it all?
No, because a lot of it's all tubes.
So.
But you can swap out a tube as you well know, and you can generally fix something.
Are there solid state versions of that stuff being sold today, or is
yes.
just?
And you can buy kits. It's like anything, whatever however what you want to spend. And you can buy a $1,000 iPhone. It all depends on what you want.
And now you're selling stuff here?
I am selling stuff. Just mainly components right now.
How's it been going?
Been going very good.
Great. All right.
I'm going home with a lot less.
That's always a good thing.
Make my wife happy.
I'm going home with more.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, Jim, it was great talking to you. Thank you very much.
All right, David. Take care.
But anyway, what really struck me about the Hamfest was the incredible amount of gear that you could acquire through it. Not just ham gear. So, just to give you an idea of the sort of things you can pick up at a Hamfest, and I think some of this is going to really just blow your mind. In addition to ham gear, right? Of course, you're going to find lots of oscilloscopes. The way I found exactly what I was looking for, which was a desktop version of Tektronix 7603 oscilloscope. It's a mainframe with plugins because I wanted to move from my rack mountable 7603 to a desktop version. So I was able to grab that with a couple extra plugins that probably don't even go with it. I'll just give those away for $45. I mean, come on, really? That's amazing. So lots of oscilloscopes, guitar amplifiers. You see that I picked up that Fishman amp, acoustic guitar amp for $75. Got my little speaker for $1, and I'm going to make an audio probe out of that thing. Tubes.
So thousands and thousands of tubes, right? You can find pretty much everything you want in the way of tubes, and everything from preamp tubes to output tubes to it's amazing when you think about all of the stuff they have. Rectifier tubes, and depending on who's selling them, they're a little more organized than other people. So they'll have like a computer there with a spreadsheet, shows their inventory. You can look up if you're looking for a specific tube, and the prices are all over the place.
Watch out, vehicle stopped on shoulder ahead.
And the prices are all over the place. Meters, so all kinds of voltmeters and ammeters, and I'm talking about just the gauges themselves. If you want a gauge and you're making some piece of gear on your own, you're gonna find that in spades at a Hamfest. Watt meters, it's great. I didn't pick one up, but the next time I probably will, because I want to put some gauges on my power center, to see how many amps I'm drawing through it. Also see what the current voltage that's being pulled through it is. So you can find lots of gauges. Like I said earlier, microphones. I was really amazed at the number of microphones you can find. There's even an iPhone-controlled ham antenna. Lots of tube testers. And the thing there that I'm learning is there are differences between the various tube testers.
In 1 mile, exit right to exit 27, State Route 2 East, Boston.
The kind of tube testers that you're really looking for are the dynamic or mutual conductance tube testers, not necessarily the emission testers like the one I have, which is the B&K 606 Dynajet. The mutual conductance and the dynamic conductance tube testers are the better ones to get. They bring more money, but at a Hamfest, they're cheap. There's a lot of them there. Some of them maybe not working and they need to be rejuvenated, but still tons of them there. And so it's a great place to find a good tube tester. Oscillators and signal generators. They're coming out of your ears at a Hamfest like this. Telephones. It's a Hamfest. Why would you find all these telephones? But there were just like piles of old iPhones and other kinds of phones. It's crazy, but that's what you get at a Hamfest. Ipods, of course, too. Remember the iPod? I don't think I've ever seen anybody. I don't think I've seen an iPod in recent years, or anybody at least using one. But they were here at the Hamfest, and you could buy them up for like a few bucks. A lot of things made with other languages on them. So if you're into that sort of thing, ham receivers with Russian, and who knows what sort of devices I saw that were had some Asian lettering on them. I'm guessing that it was Chinese, but I really don't know. I even found one of those strobe attacks, just like the one that Uncle Doug fixes in his videos. If you need a knob or a socket, a tube socket for whatever it is you're building, well, there are going to be tons of those there too. Just knobs galore, chicken heads, you name it, they're all there. And I didn't buy any, but I certainly now know that I can go back to one of those Hamfests to find something like that. And I have all kinds of ideas for things that I want to build that might require a fresh set of knobs. Or if you have some other device that has one broken knob and you can't find the match, well, then you could probably go to the Hamfest and pick up a full set of knobs for that device that will work just fine, and it will look great. And of course, sockets, of any configuration that you need, tube sockets. You need 9 pins, you need even 4-pin sockets. Pretty crazy what they had there. Of course, you're going to find a lot of capacitors and chokes at a Hamfest like this. Ham radios and radios in general all have lots of
capacitors in them and chokes. And so if you're looking for some specific part, you're going to find it here. Lionel Trains, who would have thought, you know? Lots of Lionel Trains, well, not lots of them, but I found one guy selling entire Lionel Train sets. I don't know if you were a kid growing up and remember those old weather radios from Realistic, you know, Radio Shack. I even saw one of those, and I sent a picture of it to my dad, and I said, "Hey Dad, you remember this? We had one of these things." And he wrote back and he said, "We still have it." Lots of Morse code gear. So I'm not a ham expert, but you know, Morse code is a big component of that ham state of mind, right? A lot of these guys that have ham setups have the ability to generate Morse code. They have the keypad and everything. So you'll see a lot of the Morse code gear that you need in order to use your ham radio, not just for voice communications, but for Morse code communications. I even found one seller selling all kinds of soldering tips for your Seiko and your Hako and your Weller soldering setup. Just be aware that with the soldering tips, you're really better off going online and buying the official manufacturer soldering tips. These other ones that can be acquired through Hamfest and stuff like that, you don't know what the source of them was, and they could be just really cheap material that doesn't uniformly heat up and maybe just falls apart after some period of time on you. You want the best of breed there, so I'm not sure that I would buy any soldering tips unless I knew they were actually from the manufacturer themselves. One thing about these hams, and that's what the guys who have ham radio setups call themselves, is they maintain their gear in pristine condition. And so you're walking around a Hamfest and there's like an ancient radio, like an ancient battery operated tube radio, and it sounds beautiful. I mean, just amazing. It sounds like a stereo system, and it's only got one speaker. Like, that is just killer. That's what I love about these things, and I have some of these radios that I need to fix up in my lab. They're just waiting in line for repair, but I can't wait to repair them, because once you have them repaired, like, they sound awesome, and they just sound like a stereo system that you could buy today for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Oh, the sunlight, you can step back a little bit.
Sure.
Look at that. And just piles of stuff. Beautiful vintage ham receivers everywhere you go. Books galore. Like, if you need a book, if you're learning like I am right now, you can find a book about just about anything that has to do with electronics, tube electronics, tubes, circuits, audio circuits, ham radio circuits, radios. Just books coming out. It's like a library at a Hamfest. You can find any book you want, and they're there all relatively inexpensively. Antenna matchers and SWR meters, again, that's another thing that's a core part of any great ham radio setup. Oh, you need a knife? How about some Swiss Army knives? Boxes of Swiss Army knives for $5. Vintage voltmeters and ohm meters, as I said earlier. Entire ham setups. Homemade variacs. I mean, that's the thing about these guys, is that you don't have to go out and buy some existing variac. You build your own. And there were quite a few of them at the Hamfest. I already have 2 variacs, so I don't need more. I came close. I was like, wow, this is actually cooler than the one I have. But I decided in the end to walk away from the variacs. One of the things about all this gear is, where does it come from, right? And you'll notice if you look really closely on the labeling, a lot of it is ex-military. It's coming from, the Air Force or the
Marines or the Army. That's where, you know, you can imagine some of these the different branches of the military probably sell off a ton of this gear in their own ham and radio fests, and it ends up in the hands of civilians, and then eventually it shows up at one of these ham fests, and if you look closely you can see, wow, this used to belong to the government. And of course the government used and still uses radio communications in a big way. My cousin specialized in the tuning of radio communications for submarines, nuclear submarines. So that's a big deal.